Rape. It's a word that chills you to the bone. A horrific crime that leaves invisible scars far deeper than any physical wound. And while it's easy to categorize rapists as monsters, to truly combat this epidemic, we need to understand the twisted path that leads someone to such an act. Because rape is not a sudden eruption of evil, it's often the culmination of a societal breakdown, a slow drip of harmful ideologies and unchecked behaviors. This isn't about excusing rape, not even remotely. This is about confronting the uncomfortable truths that allow it to fester. We need to shine a light on the dark corners of our cultures, the insidious norms and systems that create fertile ground for this violence to grow. So, buckle up, because we're about to take a deeply uncomfortable look at the factors that contribute to rape culture, and I guarantee you some of this will make you squirm. Rape is a serious crime that does not occur suddenly or without cause. It often develops gradually due to the lack of proper education, discipline, and moral guidance. Here is a breakdown of the phases that can lead to such behavior. Think back to childhood, that blissful time of finger painting and juice boxes. Now imagine a child, barely old enough to tie their shoes, being bombarded with hypersexualized content readily available at their fingertips. This isn't some dystopian future, folks. This is the reality for many kids today. Children are exposed to a constant barrage of sexual imagery, often without the emotional maturity or context to process it. We give them smartphones before they understand empathy, hand them tablets before they've learned self-control. And then we act surprised when their understanding of sex becomes warped, their expectations skewed. It's like handing a loaded gun to a toddler and saying, "Now, be responsible, okay? Discipline, respect, boundaries. These aren't innate, they're taught, nurtured, and reinforced." But when the message is constantly undermined by a culture saturated with instant gratification and consequence-free consumption of sexual content, well, you're essentially setting the stage for a very disturbing play. And let's not pretend this is just about internet access. The rot often starts at home. Parents who laugh off sexist jokes, who excuse aggressive behavior as boys being boys, they're laying the first bricks in this foundation of entitlement. Because here's the thing. Discipline isn't about punishment. It's about teaching restraint, respect for oneself and others. It's about instilling the crucial life lesson that not every desire needs to be acted upon, that no is a complete sentence, and that other human beings are not objects to be controlled. Without this foundation, without a moral compass to guide them, some individuals grow up believing that their desires supersede the rights and dignity of others. And that, my friends, is a very slippery slope. Remember that kid we talked about? The one growing up surrounded by unchecked access to explicit content? Now imagine them as teenagers, hormones raging, social awkwardness at an all-time high. The internet becomes their haven, a place to explore their burgeoning sexuality, often in unhealthy and secretive ways. Online pornography, readily available and completely lacking in emotional context or consequences, becomes their warped sex education. It distorts their perceptions of intimacy, consent, and healthy relationships. And the algorithms? Oh, the algorithms! They're like those creepy friends who only encourage your worst impulses, constantly suggesting more extreme, more degrading content, creating a feedback loop of shame and insatiable desire. It's like being trapped in a funhouse mirror of sexuality, where everything is distorted, exaggerated, and ultimately dehumanizing. And let's not forget about the anonymity the internet provides. It allows individuals to detach from their actions, to view others as nothing more than pixels on a screen. This detachment, this lack of real-world consequences can be intoxicating. It fuels a sense of invincibility, a belief that they can indulge in their darkest desires without repercussions. But here's the harsh reality. The real world isn't a comment section you can just log out of. The lines between fantasy and reality become blurred, and the respect for human dignity, already fragile from a lack of early discipline, crumbles even further. Imagine a mind, young and malleable, constantly bombarded with sexual imagery. Now picture that mind trying to focus on anything else: education, personal growth, basic human interaction. It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube in a hurricane. The constant influx of stimulating content hijacks their brain chemistry. Dopamine, that little chemical that makes us feel good, gets released in spades, reinforcing the cycle of seeking out more and more extreme content. It's a potent cocktail, and it can be incredibly difficult to break free from. Meanwhile, real life, with its complexities, its need for patience and understanding, pales in comparison. Why bother with the effort of building genuine connections when instant gratification is just a click away? This obsession becomes an insidious poison, slowly eroding their empathy, their ability to see others as complex human beings with their own thoughts, feelings, and boundaries. The world, in their eyes, becomes a collection of potential objects for their own gratification, a distorted reflection of the digital echo chamber they've trapped themselves in. Chapter 4. When Desire Trumps Morality, Corruption of the Mind. Imagine a pressure cooker, steam building, the heat rising relentlessly. Inside that pressure cooker is a mind saturated with unchecked desires, distorted perceptions of sex and intimacy, and a growing disconnect from the real world. What happens when that pressure cooker finally explodes? The line between fantasy and reality, already blurred, is obliterated. The objectification they've internalized from years of consuming dehumanizing content spills over into their real-world interactions. Women are no longer colleagues, friends, sisters, or mothers. They are reduced to conquests, bodies to be possessed, fantasies to be fulfilled. And here's the truly terrifying part. They may not even recognize the harm they are inflicting. Years of distorted thinking have warped their sense of right and wrong. They may genuinely believe they are entitled to take what they want, that their desires supersede the autonomy of another human being. This is the insidious nature of this corruption. It's not always a mustache-twirling villain who sets out to commit a heinous act. It can be someone who, through a toxic combination of societal conditioning, unchecked access, and a lack of moral guidance, has lost their way, their humanity eroded by a digital and cultural landscape that normalizes exploitation. Chapter 5. The Illusion of Power. Rape as Domination, not Passion. Let's dismantle a dangerous myth right now. Rape is not about sex. It's about power, control, and a warped sense of entitlement. It's the violent assertion of dominance over another human being, a way to exert control in a world where they may feel powerless. Think about it. Many perpetrators target individuals they know, friends, acquaintances, even partners. This isn't about uncontrollable lust, it's about possessing someone they perceive as vulnerable, someone they believe they can overpower. It's a twisted act born out of insecurity, anger, or a need to compensate for their own feelings of inadequacy. It's the ultimate act of disrespect, a complete disregard for another person's autonomy and dignity. And let's be clear, this desire for power isn't limited to physical violence. It can manifest in emotional manipulation, coercion, and the use of threats or intimidation to obtain sexual gratification. It's about bending someone else to their will, regardless of the consequences. Chapter 6. A Breeding Ground for Violence, Patriarchal Norms. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather the societal structure that's been propping up this whole mess for centuries: patriarchy. This system, where men hold the power and women are relegated to secondary roles, is the fertile soil in which rape culture flourishes. When boys are raised with the message that they are inherently superior, that their needs and desires trump those of women, it creates a dangerous sense of entitlement. This entitlement manifests in countless ways, from casual sexism and objectification to outright violence. It's the insidious belief that women are somehow less than, that their bodies are not their own, that their purpose is to serve and please men. This ingrained misogyny creates a climate where violence against women is not only tolerated but, in some cases, even encouraged. Think about the language we use. We tell boys to man up, to suppress their emotions, to equate vulnerability with weakness. We teach girls to be ladylike, to be submissive, to prioritize the needs of others above their own. Is it any wonder that some men grow up believing they have the right to control and dominate women? Chapter 7. The Consent Crisis, Lack of Education and Understanding. Let's talk about sex education, or rather the lack of it. We live in a world where we teach kids about the Pythagorean theorem but tiptoe around the birds and the bees like it's a flock of radioactive pigeons. And when we do talk about sex, it's often shrouded in shame, misinformation, and a healthy dose of don't ask, don't tell. This lack of comprehensive, fact-based sex education creates a dangerous void. Young people are left to navigate the complexities of intimacy, consent, and healthy relationships armed with nothing but whispers in the hallway and whatever questionable knowledge they can glean from the internet. Consent, my friends, is not a complex equation. It's about as straightforward as it gets, freely given, enthusiastically received, and revocable at any time. But when we fail to explicitly teach this, when we treat sex like a taboo subject, we create a breeding ground for misunderstandings, misinterpretations, and ultimately, abuse. It's time to normalize the conversation around consent, to teach it early and often. Because understanding consent isn't just about preventing assault, it's about fostering healthy, respectful relationships built on communication and mutual understanding. Chapter 8. From People to Playthings, the Dehumanizing Effects of Objectification. Open your eyes and look around. Women's bodies are everywhere. Plastered on billboards, photoshopped in magazines, used as props in music videos to sell everything from cars to hamburgers. We are bombarded with images of idealized, often unattainable beauty standards, all designed to do one thing: sell a product. But here's the problem. This constant objectification takes a toll. It chips away at our humanity, reducing us to body parts, objects to be desired, possessed, and discarded. And when you dehumanize someone, it becomes easier to justify treating them poorly, to disregard their feelings, their boundaries, their basic human rights. Think about it. When you start to see someone as a collection of body parts rather than a whole person, it's easier to ignore their no, to dismiss their discomfort, to rationalize away their pain. It's a slippery slope, and it's one that we as a society have been sliding down for far too long. We need to start challenging these harmful representations, to demand better from the media we consume, to teach our children to recognize and reject objectification in all its forms. Chapter 9. Justice Denied, Weak Legal and Justice Systems. Imagine this. You've gathered the strength to report your assault, to navigate the invasive medical exams, the relentless questioning, the skepticism that often follows survivors of sexual violence, and after all that, the perpetrator walks free. This, unfortunately, is not some dystopian nightmare. It's the reality for countless survivors around the world. We live in a world where rape is often treated as a minor offense, where the burden of proof falls disproportionately on the victim, and where justice, for many, remains frustratingly out of reach. Weak laws, lenient sentencing, and a pervasive culture of victim blaming create a system that protects perpetrators more than it supports survivors. And when rapists are allowed to walk free, when their crimes are minimized or dismissed, it sends a dangerous message that violence against women is acceptable, that their voices don't matter, that their pain doesn't count. We need to demand better from our justice systems, to advocate for stronger laws, stricter enforcement, and a shift in the way we investigate and prosecute these crimes. It's time to stop treating rape like a second-class crime and start holding perpetrators accountable for their actions. Chapter 10. Silenced by Shame, Victim Blaming and Social Stigma. Imagine this. You finally find the courage to speak your truth, to share your story of survival, only to be met with doubt, suspicion, and judgment. You're questioned about your clothing, your behavior, your alcohol intake, as if any of those factors could ever justify a violation of your body and your autonomy. This, my friends, is the insidious nature of victim blaming. It shifts the responsibility from the perpetrator to the survivor, placing the onus on them to prove their innocence, to justify their actions, to somehow prove that they didn't ask for it. Let me be crystal clear, there is no excuse for rape, ever. Full stop. No matter what someone was wearing, how much they had to drink, or where they were, no one asks to be raped. This culture of shame and silence prevents countless survivors from coming forward, from seeking justice, from getting the support they need and deserve. It allows perpetrators to operate with impunity, knowing that their victims are less likely to report, less likely to be believed, and less likely to see any real consequences for their actions. We need to dismantle this culture of victim blaming, to create a society where survivors are believed, supported, and empowered to heal. Outro: Breaking the Cycle. Cultivating Respect and Accountability. We've delved into some deeply uncomfortable territory, but understanding the roots of this problem is the first step towards dismantling it. It's time to stop treating rape as an isolated issue, as the work of a few bad apples. This is a societal problem, one that requires a fundamental shift in our attitudes, our beliefs, and our behaviors. If we fail to teach our children the value of discipline, they may begin to view women as objects rather than human beings. A disciplined, respectful upbringing is the key to preventing such crimes in the future. We need to have open, honest conversations about consent, to challenge harmful gender norms, to hold the media accountable for its portrayal of women, and to create a justice system that believes and supports survivors. It's a long and arduous journey, but it's a journey we must take. The fight against rape culture is a fight for a more just, equitable, and compassionate world, and it's a fight we can't afford to lose.